Hello, you are listening to the Charles Bonnet Syndrome podcast. My name is Shaman, and today's special guest is Jo Hill. Jo is a caregiver for her husband who has CBS, and she'll be discussing her experiences as a caregiver. How you doing today, Jo?
I'm great. How are you, Shaman?
I'm doing really well, and I'm glad to be speaking with you. Thank you. So can you tell me what is your husband's eye condition?
My husband, Frankie, has glaucoma, and he's had it for 20 plus years, and it has degraded to the point where now he's legally blind, and that's how he met Mr. Charles Bonnet syndrome.
So how long ago did he start experiencing CBS symptoms?
December 2018, he started experiencing the symptoms. He had a lawn care business, and he would see things in the grass, and he would think that it was a snake, but usually it would be leaves or something. But that's when it started. And then he saw animals in the grass. And I would be with him with the lawn care business because he couldn't really drive anymore. And he would tell me these things he was seeing before we could even cut the grass. And then from there, it just got worse.
Wow, that must have been frightening. And you or him didn't even know what CBS was initially, right? Like what were you thinking when he kept saying this? What were your thoughts?
I had no idea. I didn't know what was going on. I knew it had something to do with his eyes. So I sat down at the computer and I just started, what people do, Googling, hallucinations, animals, snakes in the grass. And eventually I came upon Esme's umbrella.
That is just seems to be the story that most of us take. And because of all of the information that she has out there and how active she is, Judith Potts, we're talking about, the person that actually founded Esme's Umbrella and she runs the organization, we're able to find this information. It must have felt good, right? To see something and that could lead you to believe what could be going on or something like that.
It did help. It was still scary for me because her organization is over in the UK. I needed to find something near me in the United States that could help me with it. I started talking to his eye doctor about it. And of course, he didn't know what Charles Bonnet syndrome was. And I was able to print off information from Esme's umbrella, take it to him to look up the information. And I can't really be sure how I found Dr. Cusick, but I did as I'm searching on the internet for some help. I found him.
I have a similar story. And basically, I typed in hallucination into Google. And when I did that, there was a list of about 5 or 6 common things that cause hallucinations. And one of them was Charles Bonnet syndrome. So I actually didn't go to Google. After that, I went to YouTube, which is my place of choice, which is owned by Google. And it's also the second largest search engine in the world. And I found a bunch of videos. And then I found my way to Esme's Umbrella that way. And when I went to Esme's Umbrella, on her website, it actually said, for help in the U.S., contact Dr. Gary Cusick. He was listed on her website. But regardless, however you found it, you did find him. And Dr. Cusick helped so many people. I was saying in an interview a couple of days ago that he's kind of like the glue that holds everything together in the U.S. And also, too, I'm sure that they have CBS groups that are international. I used to visit a couple of them virtually, but a lot of them no longer operate. But his group runs week after week in the US and he invites people from anywhere. So tell me a little bit about once you contacted Dr. Cusick and what happened and what that was like.
I was so happy just speaking with him. In fact, I got in touch with him before he actually started the support group, where, of course, I met you at as well. And I was ready to pack Frankie in the car, drive to Kentucky to meet with Dr. Cusick, but I didn't have to do that. Just doing more research, talking with Dr. Cusick. And another avenue I found, and I did find it on YouTube, was TED Talks. And there was a special segment on hallucinations. And that was really good and real informational. And that helped me a lot.
That's one good thing about the information age that we live in, because I remember speaking to other guests and I was saying, what if we lived 200 years ago and there was no YouTube and there was no Google, or you lived in a small town where they didn't even have a doctor? So it may be, maybe they didn't even have psychologists at the time. So it's really, I think, a good thing that we actually have these resources. It's still very challenging, but it's good to know that you're not alone. And then we can have these virtual meetings and stuff.
Definitely so. Yeah.
Can you talk about the progression from the time that you found out that it was CBS until now? How has it been for your husband?
It's definitely been challenging. We got through it together, but some of the things that he would tell me he was seeing, just some of them were bizarre after he got through the phase. And he actually did see the patterns and the colors on the wall. He saw that kind of stuff. He saw cameras in the walls. They did hospitalize him to try to get meds to more so to help with the anxiety of what he was seeing, because we all know there's no cure for the hallucinations. And then I was able to, over the years, it took time, and different doctors, different psychologists finally found some that were willing to work with me, where I would say, hey, he's falling a lot on this medication. Can I tweak it? Can we cut it in half? Why is he taking this medication? If it's not working, can we stop it? And we were able to finally get to a point where he's not falling anymore. He's handling the hallucinations a lot better. And I want to say before I forget, thank you so much for this. Hearing my husband during his interview with you revealing some things he had never even told me about has really helped me in my way of taking care of him. I'm so happy to know that he knows these things aren't real, but there was a time when he did think that they were, and things got really bad during those times, but we've gotten through it.
Thank you so much for just asking him if he wanted to participate and just, helping him to set everything up. And I think he was brave and I think he's stronger than he realizes. And I think everybody with CBS is, because it's you just got to take it one moment at a time. It's very difficult, very challenging. When there's no magic pill that you can take, that's hard. When there's no known treatment, that's hard.
Mm.
And I just say that keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep educating yourself. Hopefully you can open up and not be ashamed to become an advocate, because when you speak about this, there's always someone that says, hey, I've experienced that, or my grandmother was experiencing that. So yeah. Before I forget something, I do want to say, when I did research and when I spoke to people that are very knowledgeable, they say there's really no medicine for CBS.
Right.
But some people, it's so severe and it disrupts their quality of life so much that you have to talk to a psychiatrist or maybe some other kind of medical doctor to help try something to improve their quality of life. So was that the case for your husband? Was it just so severe that you had to go to a doctor and see if they could give him something to maybe decrease the hallucinations? Or from the beginning, was it just to try to decrease the anxiety associated with the hallucinations because they knew nothing would help? So I was just curious if you could talk about that medicine route.
Sure. At first, because I didn't know that there was not a pill that would cure the CBS, we would go to different doctors to try to. I thought maybe there was a pill that would stop the hallucinations. And so, unfortunately, we tried a couple places and it was just like a pill mill. That's all the doctors did. And I was confused because they weren't really talking to him to see what he was seeing and how it was affecting him. So then I would change and go to a different doctor. And then they would change the medicine. But they didn't really talk to him. It took possibly a good 2 years before I was able to find a psychologist that worked with us with the medications to help tweak it. Because in the beginning, not knowing what he was dealing with, he was starting to think they were real. At one point, we had some of the elders from our congregation. They came to the house to try to comfort him because we didn't know what these things were he was saying. So prayer definitely helps, and that's what he does a lot. And I do in the caregiver role. I have to pray for patience because there's so much going on and you don't really know how to deal with it. You don't know how to help them. And I would get frustrated because I couldn't stop what he was going through. And that was hard for me. But we were able to get through it, work through it. He realizes that they can't harm him. But that took a whole long time for him to get to that point. There was one occasion where he actually called the family in because the spirit people, that's what he calls them, were motioning, making movements like they were going to end his life. And he wanted to say goodbye to his family. But we were all there with him, talking to him, helping him to realize, or hoping to help him to realize they can't hurt you. But he got through that. And just like today in his interview, he says they always around, they never sleep, but they can't harm you.
I want to commend you and your family for that because I hear so many people get into arguments and they say they're not real, they're not there. But when he called the family around, they came. And some of them probably knew what he was going through because I'm sure he may have said something or may have said something. But that's so important because sometimes even if they're not real, they're actual, like they're there for that person. So to be able to come and do whatever's necessary to show them that kind of support goes a long way. So I just want to commend you for that. I'm just curious, did people come from like the next town over, or did people like fly in from another state when that happened?
Our family is pretty close in the same area.
Okay.
So we have 6 children. They're all adults. And the only one that wasn't here at the time was our oldest daughter in Michigan. But other than that, everybody was here for him. And I wanted to say, I argued with him probably quite a bit in the beginning. There was nights when he couldn't even sleep. And I couldn't sleep because he couldn't sleep, and I would get aggravated. And that's when you had to really depend on prayer a lot. And I stopped praying for the hallucinations to stop. I realized I just needed to pray for me to have more patience to help him deal with it because they weren't stopping. And that has seemed to help a lot, as well as the support groups. Oh, the support groups are definitely a help because then I would hear from other caregivers what they're dealing with and how they're handling it. And I wouldn't feel so bad because I had lost my temper with him about these hallucinations. So that helps too.
And that's one thing that I like about what Dr. Gary Cusick is doing. He has a support group for people that have CBS, but he also has one for people that are caregivers.
Yes.
And that takes a lot of time because that's instead of 1 hour, it's 2 hours, or sometimes they go on if it's a crisis or something like that.
Mhm.
So I want to commend him for that. And sometimes even attending support groups that are for caregivers for people that don't have CBS could be helpful because there are some general things that are commonalities when you're a caregiver, but when you can have a support group specifically for people with CBS, that is really good too because there are some unique things too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are times when we actually cried together, the other members of the support group, and were caregivers all over the United States, not just
Mhm.
locally, that were going through things and exchange phone numbers and say, hey, when you're up at 2 in the morning with them and you're overwhelmed, call me. And it works,
It's nothing like human connection,
right?
support, sharing your story, being there for someone. And sometimes just your presence is good enough. You may not know what to say, but just being there so the person's not alone in the group, or something may come up later, or you send a text or something. I don't want to have you talk for someone else, but if you're okay sharing, can you say how it affected your family members? Because you have 6 kids and if you can maybe share a little bit of some things that maybe they've said or how you think it has affected them.
Oh, definitely. I'm blessed. I'm fortunate that my adult children help me with him, the ones that are still here local. We have one son that he watches him in the mornings. I still work part time. So for 3 hours, I'm gone to work, and my son, he sits with him, or I take him to his home. The night, sometimes at night when Frankie can't sleep, I take him to his son's house and he keeps him overnight. And he's like, Mom, how do you do it? He wouldn't stay asleep and he's not believing me. And I tell him, Dad, it's okay. You're going to be okay. Sometimes Frankie says that the hallucination people take his belongings, they take his clothes, they take his hats, things that are important to him. He's got a signed jersey from Kobe Bryant, authentic, with a picture on it where he's signing it, and he'll say they took it off the wall. It's not there. They put something else there. But my son was able to try to convince him that it was okay. I have one of our daughters who was in the military. She, knowing what we were dealing with here at home, she got a humanitarian transfer to Wright Pat here in Ohio. And she was at the DMV up by Washington to be here to help me with him. And so she moved right around the corner, and that helped because she would come over, her and the kids, and spend time with him. And she saw what we were dealing with. Like Frankie said, they would be in the car when we were driving or going somewhere. She was able to experience that, and it just hurt her that her dad was going through that, and she's crying to me when we got home. Whatever he was seeing in the car that day, I'll share this with you. He was in the back seat, but he saw something in the front seat between me and my daughter. And he was telling us, y'all need to turn away, turn your head, don't look that way. It was that real to him. So she experienced that and she understands what it's like to be a caregiver with someone who has CBS. My other adult children as well have helped in their own ways.
It's definitely a group effort, and I'm glad that because when difficult things happen, they could push you apart or they can bring you together, and it seems like they're bringing you together. So I'm grateful for that, and it's good to hear that. And I know you're probably like any other family, you've had your ups and downs and challenges, but you're definitely working together, and to get a transfer, that is really something else. It's one thing to say, oh, I'll help. And then another thing to let your dad come in at night when you know he's not going to sleep and you may have to go to work the next day or whatever the case may be. So I really commend that because sometimes that's just what you need. Just one night, 1 hour, 3 hours in the morning. Because sometimes working could keep your sanity because my dad retired and he's been working and he said he does it so he can stay moving, so he can stay connected, so he can talk to his coworkers, and so he can keep moving and stuff. So having those few hours, how does that make you feel during the morning? Those few hours, does that still like help you a lot? Do you really look forward to having that time to yourself or working, or what is it like still working part time for you when you have this to deal with also?
I do enjoy it. I appreciate the opportunity to have those few hours away doing something that I enjoy and also getting that break. And truth be told, Frankie probably needs that break from me sometimes,
Yeah.
but I get him up in the mornings, he gets dressed, we get dressed, and I always make sure I leave out with enough time to get him whatever he wants for breakfast. Right. And now he's on this thing of chocolate milk and breakfast pizza. And I make sure he gets it every morning. And then I go to work, and my coworkers are aware of my situation. They always ask how he's doing. They ask how I'm doing. And they offer suggestions sometimes. But it's definitely a benefit to be able to get that time away.
And I like what you said. That takes a real person to say maybe he needs that break too, because no matter how good a situation is, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And, when you're around each other all the time, it could be good to help you appreciate what you don't have at that moment or appreciate what you do have. So
Right.
that is really something.
Yeah.
And that's good that he's willing, because his name is Frankie, and he actually did a podcast interview. I don't know if it'll be released before this or after this, but he's talking about it. I think that's good. I think it's like cathartic to be able to get things off your chest. And I've heard many people say, Shaman, thank you for this podcast, because my mother, my sister, my husband listens to it and they realize they're not alone. They hear some techniques, and sometimes it helps them, sometimes it doesn't, but just knowing they're not alone, hearing other people's experiences is beneficial. So I commend him for that and commend you for this too.
Thank you.
What are some things from your perspective that have maybe, I'll start with your husband. What are some things that you've noticed that maybe help him a little bit from your perspective? You know, is it doing certain activities, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what are some things, some people buy an eye patch for their spouse, and then an eye patch, they don't have the hallucinations, or maybe they sleep on the couch in the living room and have less hallucinations than in the bedroom. Like, has there been things that you've noticed that have helped him that maybe you have done or suggested?
That's good that you brought that up, Shaman, because he does. It helps him not sleeping in the bedroom because of what he sees in the bedroom. So we have nice recliners for him throughout our home that he can use to sleep in. And just recently, my husband has always enjoyed music. We're from the Motown age, right? And so I had one of the bedrooms converted into what I call his music room. And he can sit in there sometimes up to 2 hours just listening to music. He would tell me what songs he liked when he would hear them on the radio. And then he had them put on CDs. He can't see to select songs, but he had them put on the CDs and he listens to those. And sometimes when I'm peeking in there checking on him, he's just sitting there. I don't know if he's still seeing people. Maybe he does. Maybe they're up dancing or something, but he enjoys that. And he's even tried to take lessons, saxophone lessons. Now, his vision impairment keeps him from learning very quickly, but he's trying that and also trying to learn how to play the bass guitar, things that keep his mind working, keep it busy for him. So if they are in the room with him, then they're just taking the lesson along with him. He doesn't let them bother him.
That's actually great too, because I've had some people come on this podcast that actually have visual impairments, and they talk about the art that they create. They're artists and they draw, and sometimes it's tactile stuff. And sometimes when I hear people say, I can't do nothing and I can't do anything, my eyes are gone, I can't see like I used to. But someone listening to this can say, hey, maybe I should try the saxophone, or maybe I should try the bass guitar or something. It's possible. So I commend you for that. Does he take his lessons virtually, or do you take him to someone's house, or how does that work?
We're fortunate. One of the brothers from the Kingdom Hall has a music store, and he actually comes to the house and he gives Frankie his lessons one on one. And sometimes I just hear him in there just talking about sometimes everything but music, but they enjoy that time together. And he actually practices through the week, and it kind of sounds like a goose. He's just learning. He's blowing in that sax, but he's really serious about it. And I'm hoping that that's helping him with his hallucinations too.
That is great. I'm so glad to hear that. So, what is a difficult day for you as a caregiver? I don't know if you want to share specifics, or you just want to talk in generalities. I'm just curious. What would you say a difficult day is?
When I haven't gotten enough sleep because he's been up, and then trying to get through the day, getting him dressed, taking him to my son's. I go to work. By the time I get back from those few hours of work, I'm picking him up and I bring him home. Well, he's still got to eat. There are things I still have to do for him, but because of the lack of sleep, I'm kind of moody, I guess I could say, kind of snappish sometimes. And I regret those moments, but I'm human. So it's going to happen. When I don't get that rest, then I'm kind of short tempered with him. That's a bad day for me.
And what are some things that you do to help you as a caregiver, whether it's connected to a bad day or however you want to express it?
I keep my nails done. That's one of the things I do for myself. I'm able to sit there and
Okay.
get that mani-pedi and just relax, and that helps me. And of course, the support group, that helps me when I'm able to get on Saturdays with Gary's group, Dr. Gary's group. That helps me. Being able to talk to my adult children about what's going on with dad, and yeah, sometimes just having a good old cry, want just go someplace by myself and just have that good old cry and try to get that frustration out. Sometimes you just sit in the car before you go in the house just to get that out, but you have to find a way to get that release.
And I was thinking, because I knew that you were Frankie's spouse, and I know that in the vows it says for better or worse, and nobody knows the future and nobody hopes for bad, but it's amazing how what people go through, because if it's not CBS, it's something else, and life is just going to be it's just going to life is what people say. So it's just amazing that you take up that mantle and do those things, and really, just because you're supposed to do it doesn't mean it's easy doing it. Just like we're supposed to be parents doesn't mean it's easy being a parent or it's easy being a spouse. And I was thinking too, I don't know what you would have to say about this. It just popped in my mind because I know when you're married, it's for better or worse, but when you are a sibling or when you're a child, it's not necessarily a vow that says something like that, unless it's something biblical that I may be forgetting or something like that. But I was just wondering, like, man, because you hear children who take care of their parents,
Mhm.
you have siblings that take care of their other sibling, and it's like challenging when you deal with this, no matter what angle you're dealing with.
It is always going to be a challenge. And I think the love that we have for our spouses, for our siblings, for our parents, that help. And biblically, even as children, adult children, you have that directive to take care of your parents.
Honor your mother and father. I just thought of that. That just popped in my mind too. And there's
Yeah,
many other references too in the Bible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to your mother, even though the father's the head of the household, they admonish the children, even adult children, to listen to your mother, to take care of her. And hopefully, my kids, when it's my turn, are going to do the same thing for me.
That's something because it's not easy.
You know?
Yep. And you don't do things to get something in return, but sometime doing it, you do get something in return. If you believe in the afterlife, if you believe God sees everything, or even setting an example for the other kids so they can realize the love. And then, like you said, when it's our time, because sometimes some people don't. They just have a heart attack and go or die in their sleep. But some people, more often than not, now that we're living older and medicine and advances, that we do kind of get into a position where we need someone's help.
Right.
You definitely never know. You talked about the time when your husband felt like the hallucinations wanted to end his life and the family came together. Are there any other times that stand out that were very challenging or that were something maybe out of the ordinary or something really chronic or, for lack of better words, happened that you would want to share?
There was this one incident, I'm not sure what really brought it on, where he was so angry. And this is when we were in the process of trying to tweak the medications, and the authorities had to be called to help me get him calmed down. And then, of course, some of our adult children came to the house too at that time. Just he was gone for a couple weeks while they were trying to get his medications working for him. And I'm not sure what brought that particular episode on. But I will say, over the 6 years that he's been struggling with this, it's happened 3 different times. But the last time had to be, I want to say, over 2 years ago. So prayerfully, he'll continue to stay in a good place for now so that that doesn't happen again.
I've heard from psychologists and other professionals that if you actually have auditory hallucinations, there's a good chance that maybe your hearing is diminishing. And if you get a hearing aid or get a hearing test and then get a hearing aid, those will go away. Has he ever had like a hearing test recently to kind of rule that out?
Well, he doesn't have any auditory, he doesn't hear voices,
Okay. All right.
but
It's more touch because he did tell me he touches them, and he did say kind of they'll talk to each other, but he reads their mouth. So maybe I misinterpreted that as he hears them sometimes. So it's more what he sees and what he feels.
what he feels. He has said to me before, "Did you just touch my shoulder?" And I'll say, "No, I didn't touch your shoulder." And it might be one of those instances when I'll say, "Nobody's touching your shoulder. You're okay." But he felt something. So I have to respect that.
Yeah, and what I say just from just a supporter and someone who's not a medical professional is it seems that at least in some cases it's possible that you can actually have CBS for a long period of time, and it can be severe enough where it causes you a lot of anxiety, you're sleep deprived for many days and weeks, and then you could start experiencing some other kind of hallucinations because if you're not sleeping, you can start to feel things or hear things or see things in a different type of way or experience some other, maybe even smell things. So that's what it seems to be from a non-medical, perspective sometimes for some people. And some people also say that just because you have CBS doesn't mean that you won't start having dementia or some other things like that. So they say if you do go to a doctor, it's good for them. Because with the dementia test, more often than not, they're just asking you questions, count backwards and count forwards, and what is this and that. So it's good to consider that if you're a caregiver listening to this, if the person that you're caring for is willing to do that, encourage them to get tested.
Definitely happened with Frankie, where they tried to give him one of those kind of tests, or they say, "I'm going to give you 5 words, and I'm going to ask you later what those 5 words were." Well, and Frankie is like, he didn't really care about those words in the first place, so he didn't really cooperate, we'll say, with that particular kind of test. So it was unfounded. They couldn't make a decision about it. But he's been through that. He's had hearing tests. I stay on top of his vision exams. We try to check everything out to rule anything else out that could possibly be causing the things that he's seeing. But so far, it's just Charles. We call him Charles.
Yeah, yeah. And does he kind of like cooperate with you and just trust you as his wife and just, okay, honey, you want me to do this, I'll do it? Or does he kind of like push back sometimes and say, I don't need that test? Or is it a combination?
Combination. Same.
Okay, all right.
Um,
So what are some tips that you can give some caregivers that may speak to the person they're caring for and they like, I don't need no brain scan and I don't, there any I know everybody's unique, but is there any techniques or tips you want to share? Maybe, obviously, patience, but what else?
Definitely patience, and then just not being argumentative, but trying to reason with them the necessity of the particular test. And like sometimes I will say to Frankie, "Look, I'm going to pay for this. I just want you to get it done for me. I'll pay for it." And then he'll go ahead and go through with it, as long as it's not coming out his pocket.
I like that, and also like when you said for me, because some people won't do something for them, but it's like. I love my wife. I love my kids, and let me just go ahead and do this to make them quiet, and hopefully they'll cooperate with the test and things like that. And so it's so interesting that some people have brain scans and they don't see nothing, and they say the brain looks good, but it may not function well, or vice versa. So it's the brain is so complex, and obviously CBS there's all indications that are saying that it's coming from the brain, especially when you see it in 2020 and you have diminished eyesight. And it seems to be more frightening for people that have some eyesight. I don't know, because when I spoke to Frankie, he said that he could see some things, but he can't really make out faces and things like that. Is he able to kind of get around on his own, or does he need like someone to take his hand or a cane? How much sight kind of does he have? You think?
His vision is limited. He's okay around in familiar surroundings. But if we go out someplace that's unfamiliar, then yeah, we usually will have his hand or his arm, or he'll put his hand on somebody's shoulder. He, it, let's see, how do I say? He has a cane. He has the red tip, white tip cane. He's
Yeah.
been through that training, but he doesn't really have to use it because we're always here. He's never alone, by himself going out anywhere. So his vision is he knows it's me, but my face is blurry. But those hallucination people are very clear. He sees them clearly. He can see, I want to say they measured it about 4 to 5 feet in front of himself. But even with that, it's still that facial feature is unclear. He can't see his face in the mirror. Uh, he does if he's looking at a picture in a frame, that's blurred. He can't see that person's face in a picture frame. Uh,
Okay, so he can definitely see things. He just can't see the details, and it's a low vision, but it's enough to because I hear people that say when they're 100% blind or they maybe just have a little bit of light perception, the
mhm.
CBS is not really as traumatic for them. They've told me. But when someone has some sight, it's like kind of traumatic because you can see the chair and then you can see someone on the chair where if you didn't have any sight at all and you're seeing something, you know it's CBS. But if you still have some sight and you can see the chair or know you're in your living room and then you see kids playing and a cow walking by, they say it's definitely more traumatic.
And another thing he has is a problem that he has with his vision. When he's sitting in the chair, he feels motion. He feels like that chair is moving. And so he'll get up and I'll say, "What's going on, Frankie?" And he'll say, "I'm waiting for the chair to get back in place." And I say, "Okay, we have a sectional. And if your chair was moving, then my seat would be moving too, but I'm not moving." But sometimes there's no way around it. He still feels like that furniture is moving with him on it. And that bothers him.
And does that calm him down a little bit when you explain it like that and say, well, if your chair was moving, mine would be moving, or it depends on the day?
It pretty much depends on the day. And sometimes he'll just say, "Oh, okay." But I know he's just saying that because he doesn't want to hear me keep talking about it.
Okay. I was in a caregiver support group actually this past weekend, and someone who's usually not there, they were there this weekend, and it was a young person too. And I think their aunt had CBS, and they were saying when the aunt they see a lot of spiders and things like that, and her aunt was like, "Oh, there's spiders everywhere," and then she calmly said what she does or has done in this situation is say, "Auntie, there were a lot of spiders around. I would be screaming right now. I would be yelling and everything. So there's nothing around right now." And then she said that calmed her aunt down. And sometimes I'm very quiet and I don't say much. And I wish I would have said that really kind of helped me to hear that. And obviously, it depends on what day of the week it is. You got to use discernment and everything. But that was really good to hear because I need to learn ways to be more patient and to be more understanding and try different techniques. And really, because she could have said, there are no spiders here, but that's not good. But she said, there were spiders here. I would be yelling and screaming. And I said, wow. So that reminded me of what you said with the chair. Well, we're in a sectional. So if your chair was moving, mine would be moving. So I didn't have a chance to tell her how much that helped me to hear that. But maybe she'll listen to this episode.
That's an important part of those support groups is when you hear instances like that, when what other people are saying, it does help you to try it sometimes. And that has certainly helped me a lot to try those different things that I hear other people. It's just amazing how all people with CBS see so much similar stuff, the
Yes.
same kind of things. And it makes you wonder, well, what is really going on? Is this an
Mhm.
alternative universe or something for them all, no matter where they are, all over the United States, over in the UK? You're seeing some of the same things.
Yeah, that is amazing. And as many commonalities as there are also differences too, where people are just experiencing different things. And that's what makes it challenging. It would be good if I don't mean this in an insensitive way. I'm just trying to make a point. Like if everybody saw the same cow in their room, then you could say that's CBS 100%. But one person may see writing on the wall, one person may see a cow today, and then tomorrow they may see an elephant. But I do know what you're saying. Little kids, especially women, will see little kids, people in period clothes, or especially soldiers if you've lived during World War II or something,
Right.
or you see a lot of those same things. And even when because they have the simple hallucinations and then they have the complex, and the simple are the lights and the patterns, and then the grids, and the complex are people and things. So a lot of people do see checkerboards or things like that. As soon as you find something out about CBS, you find something else that makes you say, wait a minute. But we're just going to stay on our toes. We just have to stay on our toes. Have you ever actually reached out to Judith Potts, or have you only just saw her website and read her information on the internet?
One time, I think, oh, maybe a couple times, I reached out to her and she sent me information to give to the doctors, something to print out to give to the doctors. But then another time, early on in his case, I told her that he's thinking these things are real. And so that's when she told me he must not have CBS if he thinks they're real. But now
I've
he
heard that.
knows they're not real. It's like you find one thing and then something else turns up.
Yeah, because really there's certain kind of rules, for lack of better words, to CBS. And one of the rules is the fact that people that have it have insight into the fact, knowing that it's not real is one of the rules. And also it's supposed to just be visual. So when your husband says he feels things and then at times he may kind of speak like they're real, or even people that I know or people that I've heard speak about it, it makes us say, well, I don't know. And then she actually works with Dr. Dominic Fitch, and a lot of other people in the UK. So she can't go against the things that they're telling her because they're the medical professionals. But I've spoken to people that are doing research and that have a lot of degrees and that are looking at things from different angles. And they're saying it's a possibility. There's a lot more to be discovered. And that's where the term CBS Plus came from, because people do experience those things, whether it is CBS being accompanied by something else or not. But she's doing the right thing by telling you what the research says.
Right.
And I don't go against her, but she knows just as well as I know and you know that people do hear them sometimes and they do feel them sometimes, and they
Mhm.
experience some other things. And then as much as they know that it's real, they have their moments where they're saying, I don't know, it's not that, or it's a spirit, or the house is haunted. And it's like, well, you have CBS, so this happened, but it's not CBS. So it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not an easy thing.
And I used to think, or I don't know if someone shared this with me in one of the support groups, that because your eyes are not sending the data to your brain anymore, the brain is just throwing stuff out there. Anything you've ever seen in your life or experienced, it's going to throw something out there. But some of the things that Frankie has seen, I don't think he saw previously in it, like people in the funny little costumes. I don't think he's seen that. He's seen a giant merry-go-round outside a hospital window. And he would be on the fourth or fifth floor, but he saw this merry-go-round. Now, surely he's seen a merry-go-round, but why would he see it outside the hospital window? I guess that's just what the brain is throwing at him. It was
And
something.
is also, and is this merry-go-round levitated like high, or was it a carousel? You mean like that was going, or was it like up in the air, raised up the merry-go-round,
It was raised up. Like,
floating? Okay.
so it's not a, maybe not a merry-go-round. It's the
Oh, the carousel one with the where you sit in a swing and it goes.
it goes
I
around.
think that's a I think that's a carousel. Yeah. Okay.
And he would see that, or an eagle. He talked in
Mm.
the beginning a lot about seeing this giant eagle that was carrying a basket, and the eagle could put people in the basket. He talked about that. So in one of the support groups, as I'm listening, I hear a caregiver say that their loved one had experienced these same things. And I just thought it was so odd. And I also wanted to share that in the beginning is in our search to find a way to help Frankie, we even went to the Cleveland Clinic and the neurologist there, he was a real nice guy. And he told Frankie, he said, listen, he said, you're not crazy. You are seeing these things and it's real to you. And that meant a lot to Frankie to have a medical person acknowledge that he's not crazy.
That is so good that he took time, that he spoke with him. Now, did this neurologist, did they reference Charles Bonnet syndrome, or they didn't even get that far? They just acknowledged the fact that he wasn't crazy and was seeing things.
Exactly. They didn't get that part about Charles Bonnet. They just acknowledged that he wasn't crazy. And he
Okay.
didn't want to have to go all the way back to Cleveland Clinic. So they ran tests there. So the neurologist, he was a real nice guy. He said, you won't have to come back. He said, I'll call you and let you know how things went. So I thought that was pretty nice of him too.
And neurologists are pretty qualified doctors that study the brain, which is probably the most complex organ ever. And you can even go to a neuro ophthalmologist. When you see the neuro ophthalmologist, you figure like, okay, I'm here at the neuro ophthalmologist office. I expect to have everything taken care of
Right.
and to be given a treatment plan and stuff.
Right.
And you can go. I've heard plenty of people, and I've experienced this too with the person I'm caring for, go see a neuro-ophthalmologist and they say, yep, this sounds like CBS and there's nothing I can do for you. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you're the neuro-ophthalmologist. What do you mean there's nothing you can do for me? I didn't come this far to this special hospital to hear that.
Right.
And maybe there is nothing that they can do, but there got to be something more you can tell them, whether it's handing a pamphlet, going to a website, some kind of experimental, treatment that could be possible, or some kind of talk therapy or something.
No, but you just try everything you can. Go through so many different doctors trying to find everything, the information that you can to see if there's some help for your loved one. And everybody doesn't have access to that, or everybody doesn't have the insurance or even a doctor near enough for them to get to. And so they suffer in silence. And that's so sad.
It really is. And now, well, I don't want to go off tangent. I was saying that a lot of doctors' offices are closing down and they're merging and they're moving to the bigger cities and stuff, but that's a whole nother podcast episode. But the one thing that is good is that we do have social media, we do have email, we do have Zoom and Google Meets and virtual ways to meet.
Mhm.
And they have had conferences that talk about CBS and awareness days that they have, and they have one in November, I believe it is, in the UK, and we're going to have one here in America in July.
July.
And there's things that can be done to definitely help engage and help share resources virtually.
Definitely so. And I'm happy about that. And I'm sure that there are numerous people, caregivers, as well as people with CBS, that are benefiting from this technology and benefiting from what you do, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for what you do, first of all, because that's not easy. It's not easy to be in the trenches and to still give love, have patience, and just walk the walk, because you could have given up. Some families give up and quit, maybe even divorce or split the family or whatever, and you're not doing that. So I appreciate that. So if there was a caregiver that was listening to this episode and they're at their wits' end, they're really frustrated, they're caring for someone that has CBS, they just don't know what to do, and you have an opportunity to speak something to them today, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, take it a day at a time. Sometimes you can only take it an hour at a time and hopefully get through that hour and then move on to the next hour. But patience is the key. And find a support group. Find that support group where you can share phone numbers, even. So when you're up at 2 or 3 in the morning, you can give them a call and they can help you get through that next hour. You're definitely going to need it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And sometime we make it so we can help other people make it. And there's people that I know like Kevin Potts and Eva Potts, whose mother had Charles-Bonnet syndrome, and she passed away. And then they started Mary Carmel's Light. So I'm like, wow. And I recently interviewed them and I was saying, I commend you, because some people will say, okay, mom's gone, and they'll grieve and then they'll say, I'm moving on from this. But Kevin said there was too much unfinished business. You know, they know that there's other people that are struggling out there and they wanted to do that. So I commend people for definitely doing that, sharing your knowledge. And just like you said, that support system. It's not easy calling someone at that early in the morning, but some days you're going to need it too. We said a lot. Is there anything else maybe that I forgot to bring up or you forgot to bring up that you want to discuss or want the audience to know?
No, I think we really covered a lot. And please continue to do this, Shaman. Please continue to talk to different ones, whether they have CBS or they're a caregiver, and put it out there for us because it definitely helps. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for the encouragement and for just telling me to go on. And I definitely will. And I appreciate that. And thanks again for your time and for your story. And I'm sure some people can identify with what you said. And it's going to be helpful. Like every interview is helpful, just to get more stories out there, spread more awareness, and to hopefully get to the point where it's not so unknown, where it's more known, and where we can do something about this, which we're doing now. And a lot of people that are researching, but we're just going to have to continue on because it's more work that needs to be done. So thank you so much. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe and rate the podcast. It makes a difference. And if you would like to contact me, you can email me at info@cbsyndromepodcast.com.